What about the other news today? Stage 3 income tax cuts. So the latest estimate revealed by the Treasurer, up another $11 billion, so $254 billion over 10 years. Is it becoming unaffordable?
Well, look, I think, as I mentioned on this issue the last time I discussed this on this station, I think it's an important issue. I do think with Stage 3 that we should bear in mind that this doesn't come into effect for a couple of years. And I think what we'll be focusing on in the budget in next week is how we help people with cost of living, how we deal with some of the supply side issues in the economy right now. And these are the issues I think that the government has to manage. We know that people are dealing with cost of living pressures, and the government is putting in place a number of measures to help that, but it has to do so in a very measured and targeted way. And I think there are a range of ways in which the government's already helping to deal with that. One of which is the increase in the minimum wage. There are also, of course, measures relating to PBS and childcare. But I think also crucially, both in this budget and over the next 12 to 18 months, the government needs to deal with a range of supply side issues which will help with cost of living pressures and inflation issues, such as the migration measures, such as childcare, such as skills measures. So for me, that's the priority, and that's what the government's going to need to attend to over the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty, it's fair to say, about where we'll land on the economy, recession, inflation, all these things. Given we'll know a lot more in, as you say, 12 to 18 months, is that, do you think, the time to have a really proper and vigorous debate around the Stage 3 income tax cut and what that should look like?
Oh, well, look, I don't want to kind of foreshadow what the debate's going to look like in 18 months, in a few budgets' time. For me, the priority is that the government needs to put in place measures that deal with the challenges we have right now. And look, we're dealing with
understanding you've said that, I'm just talking about
rising interest rates.
Yeah, when you sort of said before that you do see this as an issue that's worthy of more discussion, you're saying not now, but that would obviously be before it needs to be brought in. So is it once we know more about the economy in a year or so and where we're headed, then we can figure out, or Labor can figure out, the government can figure out what to do with Stage 3?
Oh, look, I mean, I think Stage 3 tax cuts are a commitment of the government, and they're in place, they're legislated. So for me, that's not something that, I'm considering at this point. For me, the economic agenda at the moment is a raft of other issues.
But you're saying at the moment, is it something that at least is, depending on the economic situation, how much turmoil is, that's if it's a much worse situation than anticipated, that would be when this debate could be revisited?
I just think there's so many kind of layers of hypothetical there. Look, what the Treasurer has flagged and other ministers have flagged is that the global economy over the last few months has worsened in the UK, in Europe, in the US and in China for different reasons. So we're dealing with that. We're dealing with natural disasters at the moment. I think the expectation is, both from the government and the Reserve Bank, that if we continue with the current mix of policies that we have at the moment, monetary and fiscal policies, that inflation should be much lower than it is now come late next year or early the year after. So, but look, there's so many degrees of uncertainty as you flagged.
Yeah, well,
I think
there
getting
are,
into a discussion around what the fiscal position will be in 18 months is really difficult.
All right, well, I'll note this in the diary. We'll maybe talk about it when that time does come. We know a little bit more. Just finally, on the floods in your region, a fair bit of clean-up going. What can you tell us about Flemington Racecourse and the flood mitigation there? Do you have any information on whether it made the situation worse? Will there be any form of investigation?
Well, look, can I just say before that, look, I've been out door knocking and talking to people the last couple of days, and it's a really difficult situation, but I just want to acknowledge that there have been volunteers from the local community coming out and helping people get their furniture out onto the street, heartbreaking work. People coming from all over Melbourne, people driving from the other side of town with groceries and just giving them to people who are affected. It really has shown the best of the community. The SES has been out. Councils put up a local community centre, at very short notice, and local and state and federal governments are giving cash benefits, which we're getting out to people very quickly. So look, that's the priority. I do think it's important that Melbourne Water is doing a rigorous analysis of the impacts of the wall. It's obviously a very complicated hydrological question. As a number of people have noted, a number of councils put out objections to that project at the time. I think the only thing we can do at this point is have a proper, rigorous analysis, which is underway. But for the moment, for me, the priority is just making sure that people get emergency payments and all the other support they need.
Yeah, and plenty of places they can go to if they want to see if they're eligible. Daniel Mulino, thanks for your time.